She asked a man with nothing why he looked so full of peace. But she wasn't ready for the answer that would break her. A millionaire CEO lost everything in a single night. Her power, her company, her identity, only to find herself standing in the rain beside a struggling single father who had nothing left to lose. But when she asked him one simple question, his answer didn't just shake her. It changed the way she saw her entire life. Because sometimes the people the world overlooks are the ones who understand it the most. And sometimes, one quiet moment between two strangers can turn loss into something far greater than success. The rain came down hard that night, the kind that didn't just fall, it pressed, like it had weight, like it wanted to push everything closer to the ground. It bounced off the cracked pavement of the South Side bus station, pooled in shallow dents, and turned the flickering overhead lights into blurred halos. Marcus Reed stood near the edge of the covered platform, just out of the worst of it. His jacket was too thin for the cold, soaked through at the shoulders, the fabric clinging to him, like it had given up trying to stay dry. But he didn't move, he was focused on something else. A small girl sat beside him on the wooden bench, her feet not quite touching the ground, swinging slowly. Her name was Lila, 7 years old, hair tied into two uneven puffs that had long since loosened in the damp air. She held a paper container of takeout noodles in both hands like it was something fragile, something important. Marcus crouched in front of her, careful, steady, using the plastic fork to divide what little food they had left into two uneven portions. He pushed the larger side toward her without saying a word. "Daddy," Lila said softly, looking at that container, then at him. "You didn't make yours, ate earlier," Marcus said, the lie smooth, practiced. "You go ahead." She didn't argue. Kids like Lila didn't argue much. They learned early which things were worth questioning and which things weren't. She nodded, trusting him, and took a small bite. Marcus watched her as she ate, his eyes soft in a way that didn't match the rest of him. The world around them was loud, buses pulling in with a hiss, engines rumbling, voices echoing. But in that moment, it all faded. There was just his daughter, just the way her shoulders relaxed a little with each bite, like the night wasn't so cold anymore. A gust of wind pushed rain sideways across the platform. And that's when he noticed her. She didn't belong there. That was obvious before she even stepped under the flickering light. She came from the direction of the street, walking fast at first, then slowing as she reached the edge of the station. Her heels clicked sharply against the wet concrete, a sound that didn't fit the place. She wore a long coat, dark, expensive, the kind that held its shape even soaked through. Her hair, once carefully styled, clung damp against her face. She stopped just inside the shelter, breathing slightly heavier than she should have been. For a moment, she didn't look at anyone. Then she looked at everything, the broken vending machine, the man sleeping across 3 seats with a backpack for a pillow, the flicker of a neon sign half dead above a closed ticket window. And then, Marcus. Eyes settled on him, like she'd been looking for something, and didn't realize it, until she found it. Marcus felt it before he looked up, that quiet sense of being watched. He lifted his head slowly, their eyes met. There was something strange about her expression. Not fear, not exactly confusion, something sharper, like she was measuring something she didn't understand. Marcus held her gaze for half a second, then looked back down at Lila. People looked all the time. Most didn't see. He wasn't interested in being seen tonight. Lila nudged the container toward him. "You can have some now. I'm good, baby," he said, smiling just enough. "Finish it." She hesitated, then took another bite. When Marcus looked up again, the woman hadn't moved. She was closer now. He hadn't heard her steps. She stood just a few feet away, rain dripping from the edge of her coat, her hands empty at her sides. Up close, she looked even more out of place. Not just because of what she wore, but because of how she carried herself. Straight-backed, controlled, even now. But something about that control looked cracked, like it had been holding for too long. "You're going to get sick standing that close to the rain," Marcus said, not unkindly, nodding toward the open edge of the shelter. She didn't respond right away. Her eyes moved again. To Lila, to the half-empty container, to Marcus's hands, still steady, still gentle, then back to his face. "You gave her your food," she said. It wasn't a question. Marcus shrugged lightly. "She's growing." The woman blinked once, like that answer didn't fit into whatever frame she was using. For a second, the noise of the station seemed to drop again, the rain louder, closer. Then she took one more step forward, close enough that Marcus could see the details now. The faint smudge of mascara beneath her eye, the tightness in her jaw, the way her fingers curled slightly, like she was holding something invisible together. She looked at him fully then, not past him, not through him, at him. And when she spoke, her voice was low, steady, but there was something underneath it, something raw. "If you have nothing," Marcus frowned slightly, not because of the words, but because of the way she said them. Like she was quoting something she didn't believe anymore. "Why do you still look at her like you have everything?" The question hung there, heavy, not loud, not dramatic, but it landed harder than anything else in the station that night. Lila looked up between them, confused, her small hand tightening slightly around the container. Marcus didn't answer, not right away. He just stared at the woman, really seeing her now. The rain-soaked coat, the exhaustion she couldn't hide, the kind of tired that didn't come from one bad day, but from something deeper, something that had been building for a long time. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, because the truth was, he didn't know her. And whatever she was asking, it wasn't really about him. Not entirely. A bus pulled in behind them with a loud hiss, brakes screaming slightly as it settled. The driver shouted out a route number. A few people stirred, grabbed bags, moved toward the doors. The moment stretched. The woman didn't move, didn't blink. She was waiting. Marcus glanced down at Lila. She was watching him now, quietly, the way she always did when she didn't understand something, but knew it mattered. He looked back at the woman. Rainwater dripped from the edge of her sleeve, hitting the ground between them in steady, quiet taps. For a second, it felt like the entire night was balanced on whatever he said next. But Marcus Reed didn't answer. Not yet. Because something in her eyes told him this wasn't the only question she had, and whatever answer she was looking for, it wasn't going to be simple. The bus doors closed with a heavy thud, and the woman didn't leave. The engine growled, headlights cutting through the rain as the bus pulled away, spraying dirty water across the curb. A few people hurried after it too late, cursing under their breath. The station settled back into its usual rhythm. Low voices, distant engines, the steady drum of rain on metal. But the woman stayed exactly where she was. Marcus noticed it without looking directly at her. People like her didn't linger in places like this. They passed through, quick and uncomfortable, always with somewhere better to be. But she wasn't moving, not toward another bus, not toward the exit, just standing there, waiting. Lila shifted on the bench, her small hand brushing against Marcus's arm. "Daddy, is she okay?" Marcus glanced down at her. "She's fine, baby." But even as he said it, he knew that wasn't true. He could see it now, clearer than before. The way the woman's shoulders were just a little too tense, like she was bracing for something that hadn't happened yet. The way her eyes kept flicking, not scanning, not searching, just trying to land somewhere safe. She looked like someone who had never had to stand still long enough to feel anything. Until tonight. "You missed your bus," Marcus said, finally turning his head toward her again. She didn't answer right away, Her gaze drifted toward the street where the bus had disappeared, then back to him. "I wasn't trying to catch it," she said. Her voice was steadier now, but still thin at the edges. Marcus nodded once, like that made sense. Most things didn't need explaining, not out loud. A man a few feet down the platform let out a loud laugh at something on his phone, the sound sharp against the quiet tension between them. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed, then faded. Lila finished the last bite of her noodles and folded the container carefully, like it was something she might need again. She slid off the bench and stood close to Marcus, her shoulder pressing lightly against his side. The woman noticed that. Her eyes lingered on the small, instinctive way Lila leaned into him. "You always wait here this late?" she asked. "Most nights," Marcus said. "Work runs long. What do you do?" He hesitated for half a second, then shrugged. "Whatever pays." It wasn't an answer people usually liked. It didn't come with titles or offices or anything you could point to and say that's something. But it was the truth. The woman nodded slowly, like she was filing that away. "I used to think I understood people," she said, almost to herself. "Patterns, decisions, why they do what they do." Marcus didn't respond. He'd heard that tone before, not the words, but the way they were said, like someone was realizing something too late. "I built an entire life on it," she continued, her voice quieter now. "Predicting outcomes, removing variables, making sure nothing unpredictable ever got through." A drop of water slid from her hair down along her jaw. She didn't seem to notice. "And now?" Marcus asked. She let out a small breath. Not quite a laugh. "Now I'm standing in a place I've never been, talking to someone I don't know, about something I don't understand." Her eyes lifted to his again. Marcus frowned slightly. "Me, you don't fit the equation," she said. Lila looked between them, confused again. Marcus gave her a reassuring glance, then looked back at the woman. "Maybe your equation's wrong," he said simply. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Not anger, not offense. Recognition, like that possibility had never been on the table before. The rain eased just slightly, softening from a heavy downpour to a steady fall. The lights overhead buzzed faintly, one of them flickering more aggressively now, threatening to go out entirely. The woman took a slow breath. "I was supposed to be somewhere else tonight," she said. "Yeah?" Marcus said. She nodded. "There was a meeting. Important. The kind that decides everything, and you didn't go." "I did," she said. For a while, Marcus waited. "They didn't," she added after a beat. "Not really." That landed heavier than she intended. Marcus leaned back slightly against the bench, crossing his arms loosely. "People always need somebody," he said. "Not when they've already decided you're replaceable." The words came out sharper this time, closer to the surface. Lila looked up at Marcus again, her small brow furrowing. "What does that mean?" Marcus glanced down at her, softening instantly. "It means some people forget what matters," he said gently. The woman watched that exchange closely. The shift in his voice, the way he crouched slightly to meet Lila at eye level, even in the middle of everything else. "You don't seem worried," she said. "About what?" She gestured vaguely around them. The station, the rain, the late hour, the fact that they were still there with nowhere obvious to go. Marcus looked at her for a long second. Then he smiled just a little. "Worry doesn't change much," he said. "Just makes the night feel longer." She stared at him, like he'd just said something she should have known, but didn't. A bus schedule clattered lightly in the wind, the metal frame rattling against its post. The man on the bench down the platform shifted, pulling his jacket tighter around himself. Everything felt ordinary again. Except it wasn't. The woman took another step closer, close enough now that Marcus could see the faint lines at the corners of her eyes. Not from age, but from strain, from holding too much, too tightly, for too long. You still didn't answer my question, she said. Marcus exhaled slowly. He looked down at Lila again. She was watching him with that same quiet attention, waiting. Then he looked back at the woman. I will, he said. Just not like this. Not like what? Not when you're still trying to figure out if I'm real or not. That caught her off guard. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Because he was right, she had been looking at him like a problem to solve, a contradiction to explain, not a person. The realization settled over her slowly, and for the first time since she stepped into that station, something in her posture shifted. Not much, but enough. Then help me understand, she said quietly. Marcus studied her for a moment. Then he nodded once, toward the dim glow of a small storefront just beyond the edge of the station. A narrow place tucked beside a closed laundromat, its windows fogged from inside, a faint warm light spilling onto the wet sidewalk. You see that place? He said. She followed his gaze. That's yours? She asked. Marcus shook his head. Not exactly. He stood up, brushing water from his jeans, then reached down to take Lila's hand. But it's where I go when I need to think, he added. The woman hesitated, just for a second, then she stepped forward. Out from under the shelter, back into the rain, and for reasons she couldn't quite explain, she followed him. The rain didn't let up as they stepped out from under the station's weak shelter. It soaked into everything. Her coat, her hair, the thin layer of composure she'd been holding onto all night. The cold hit harder out in the open, sharper, like the city itself was reminding her she didn't belong here. Marcus didn't look back to see if she was still behind him. He just walked, steady, unhurried, like this was a path he knew by heart. Lila stayed close at his side, her small hand wrapped tightly in his, stepping carefully around puddles that reflected broken neon and passing headlights. The street beyond the station was quieter, the noise of buses fading behind them, replaced by the low hum of distant traffic and the occasional splash of tires cutting through wet asphalt. The storefront Marcus had pointed to grew clearer as they approached. It wasn't much to look at from the outside. A narrow building wedged between a laundromat with dark windows and a corner store that had already pulled its metal shutters halfway down. The sign above the door flickered weakly. Half the letters burned out, the rest glowing a tired yellow that barely cut through the rain. But inside, it was warm. You could see it through the fogged glass, a soft amber light, steam rising, movement, life. Marcus reached the door first and pulled it open, the bell above it chiming faintly. A rush of heat spilled out, carrying with it the smell of something simple and familiar. Broth, bread, maybe onions cooking low and slow. Lila slipped in ahead of him, shaking a little from the cold, her shoes squeaking lightly on the worn tile floor. Marcus stepped aside, holding the door open without turning his head. The woman hesitated, just for a second, then she stepped inside. The door closed behind her with a soft click, cutting off the sound of the rain like someone had turned down the volume on the world. The place was small. Maybe 6 tables, mismatched chairs, a counter along the back with a scratched-up coffee machine and a row of chipped mugs hanging from hooks. A single television mounted in the corner played quietly, subtitles flickering beneath a late-night news segment no one was really watching. A man behind the counter looked up as they entered. He was older, gray at the temples, with a tired face that softened immediately when he saw Marcus. "You're late," he said, though there was no real bite in it. "Got held up," Marcus replied, shrugging off his wet jacket and hanging it on a hook by the door. The man's eyes shifted to Lila, and he smiled wider. "Hey there, Miss Lila. You save me any of those drawings?" Lila reached into her small backpack and pulled out a folded piece of paper, slightly wrinkled from the damp. She handed it over with a shy grin. The man took it like it was something important. "Well now," he said, unfolding it carefully. This one's going right up front. He turned, pinning the drawing to a corkboard already filled with crayon pictures and scribbled notes. The woman watched all of this in silence. Every detail, the way Lila relaxed the moment she stepped inside. The way Marcus moved through the space like it was familiar. Like it belonged to him in some quiet way that didn't need explaining. The way the man behind the counter didn't ask questions, just made room. "This your place?" she asked. Marcus shook his head. "Nah, belongs to Mr. Alvarez." The man behind the counter gave a small nod in acknowledgement without turning around. "He lets me help out sometimes," Marcus added. "Close up, clean, whatever needs doing." "And in return?" she asked. Marcus glanced at her. "Warm food," he said simply. That answer landed heavier than it should have. Mr. Alvarez turned back around, already reaching for 3 mugs. "Sit," he said, nodding toward the nearest table. "You look like you walked through a storm you weren't ready for." The woman almost laughed at that. Almost. They sat. Marcus pulled out a chair for Lila first, then took the one across from her. The woman hesitated again before sitting, carefully, like she wasn't used to chairs that wobbled slightly under her weight. Mr. Alvarez set the mugs down in front of them, steam rising into the warm air. "Coffee," he said. Then, after a beat, he slid a small bowl toward Lila. "And something better for you." Lila's eyes lit up. "Thank you," she said, already reaching for it. The woman wrapped her hands around the mug, feeling the heat seep into her fingers. She hadn't realized how cold she was until that moment, or how tired. "You come here every night?" she asked Marcus. "Most nights," he said. "Why?" Marcus leaned back slightly, his chair creaking under the shift. "Because it's one of the few places that doesn't ask too many questions." The woman looked around again, at the drawings on the wall, at the worn edges of the tables, at the quiet, steady way Mr. Alvarez moved behind the counter. "And that's enough for you?" she asked. Marcus met her gaze. "Some nights," he said. "It has to be." The television in the corner shifted to a different segment. A ticker scrolled across the bottom of the screen. Stock prices, company updates, names that meant nothing in this room. But the woman noticed. Her eyes flicked to it, just for a second. Then back to Marcus. "You said earlier," she began, her voice quieter now, less sharp, "that I was trying to figure out if you were real." Marcus didn't respond. "You were right," she said. That surprised him. Most people didn't admit things like that. "I've spent years around people who perform," she continued, "say the right things, do the right things. But it's all calculated." She looked down at the coffee in her hands, watching the steam curl upward. "You don't seem calculated." Marcus let out a soft breath. "That's because I don't have the luxury," he said. She looked up at him. "What does that mean?" "It means when you're trying to make it through the day," he said. "You don't have time to plan who you're going to be. You just are." The words settled between them. Simple, unpolished, true. Lila looked up from her bowl, a smear of broth at the corner of her mouth. "Daddy always helps people," she said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Marcus smiled slightly. "That's not always true." "It is," she insisted. "You helped Mrs. Jenkins with her groceries, and the man outside the store. And, okay," he cut in gently, raising a hand. "I get it." The woman watched that exchange, something shifting again in her expression. Not confusion this time, something closer to disbelief. "Why?" she asked again. Marcus looked at her. Really looked. "You're not asking about the groceries," he said. "No," she admitted. "You're asking why I bother," he said. She nodded. The room felt quieter now. Even the television seemed to fade into the background. The rain outside reduced to a distant, steady whisper against the glass. Marcus leaned forward slightly, resting his arms on the table. For a long time, he said slowly, I thought the world was something you had to fight, every day, just to get a little space in it. He paused. Still think that sometimes. The woman didn't interrupt, but then she came along, he added, nodding toward Lila. Lila looked up again, mid-bite, smiling like she didn't fully understand, but knew she was part of something important. And I realized, it's not just about me anymore. The woman's grip tightened slightly on the mug. So you chose to be kind, she said. Marcus shook his head. No, he said quietly. I chose not to let the world decide who I am. That landed differently, deeper. The woman leaned back in her chair, her eyes drifting again, this time not scanning, not analyzing, just taking it in. And for the first time since she stepped into that station, she stopped trying to solve him. Instead, she started listening. Outside, the rain continued to fall. But inside, something had changed, and neither of them quite knew what it meant yet. The warmth in the room wasn't just from the coffee or the simmering pot behind the counter anymore. It had settled deeper than that, quiet, steady, almost fragile, like something had been set down carefully between them, and neither of them wanted to disturb it too quickly. Mr. Alvarez moved around the kitchen with practiced ease, the soft clatter of dishes and the low hum of the stove filling the background. Outside, the rain tapped steadily against the window, blurring the world beyond into streaks of gray and yellow light. Marcus sat back, watching Lila finish her food, his expression softer now, less guarded. The tension he carried at the bus station had eased just enough to show something underneath it. The woman, Claire, though she hadn't said her name yet, kept her hands wrapped around the mug, as if letting go might send her back out into the cold. You said you thought the world was something you had to fight, she said after a while. Marcus nodded once. Yeah. And now? He glanced at Lila again, then back at her. Now I think it's something you survive, and if you're lucky, something you can change a little along the way. Claire let that sit. Change. It sounded simple when he said it, almost small, but the way he meant it, it wasn't. I used to think I was changing things, she said quietly. Big things, systems, structures, entire industries. Marcus didn't interrupt. I thought if I made the right decisions, if I removed inefficiencies, if I kept everything clean. She trailed off, searching for the right word. Then people would be better off. And? Marcus asked. Claire's eyes dropped to the table and I stopped seeing them, she said. The words came out softer than anything she'd said before. Not defensive, not polished, just honest. The television flickered in the corner, the news anchor's voice rising slightly in urgency, but it barely registered. The room had narrowed again, down to the space between them. What happened tonight? Marcus asked. Claire hesitated. For a long moment, it looked like she might not answer. Then she leaned back slightly, her shoulders dropping just a fraction. There was a vote, she said. Marcus didn't react. He didn't need to understand the details to understand the weight. My board, she added. People I've worked with for years. People I trusted. Trusted how? Marcus asked. Claire gave a faint, humorless smile. The kind of trust that comes with contracts and numbers and mutual benefit, not the kind that stays when things go bad. No, she said. Not that kind. She let out a slow breath. They've been preparing for this for months, she continued. Quietly, strategically, waiting for the right moment, and tonight was that moment. Claire nodded. They said I've become a liability, she said, the word catching slightly in her throat. That my decisions are too unpredictable. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Unpredictable how? Claire looked at him. Apparently, I've started making choices that don't maximize profit. Marcus almost smiled. Yeah, he said. That'll do it. For the first time, something close to a real smile touched her lips. Brief. Gone just as quickly. I didn't see it coming, she admitted. That's because you weren't looking for it, Marcus said. She nodded slowly. I was looking at everything else, she said. Growth projections, expansion plans, market shifts. I thought if I stayed ahead of all of that. She shook her head. I didn't realize I was falling behind the people sitting right next to me. Silence settled again, heavy but not uncomfortable, just real. Lila yawned softly, her energy finally catching up with her. She leaned against Marcus's arm, her eyes half closed. You tired? Marcus asked gently. She nodded. He slipped off his jacket from the hook and draped it over her shoulders, pulling her a little closer. Claire watched that, something tightening in her chest again. Not pain, not exactly, more like recognition. You didn't answer my question earlier, she said quietly. Marcus looked at her. I said I would, he replied. You said not like that. He nodded. Well, she said, glancing around the small room. The warmth, the quiet, the simple life unfolding in front of her. This seems like a better place. Marcus leaned forward slightly, resting his hands on the table. You ever had something taken from you that you couldn't get back? He asked. Claire blinked. The question caught her off guard. I've lost things, she said carefully. That's not what I asked, Marcus replied. She hesitated. Then slowly, she nodded. Yes, she said. Marcus studied her face for a moment, like he was deciding how much to say. I used to get angry, he said. At everything. At people. At the way things turned out. His voice was steady, but there was something deeper in it now, something older. Felt like the world owed me something, he continued. Like if I just worked hard enough, did everything right, it would balance out. Claire listened, unmoving. It doesn't, Marcus said simply. The words weren't bitter. They were certain. So I had a choice, he went on. Stay angry, or let it go. And you let it go, Clara said. Marcus shook his head slightly. No, he said. I decided not to pass it on. That hit differently. Claire felt it. What does that mean? She asked. Marcus glanced down at Lila, now half asleep against him. It means whatever I've been through, he said quietly. She doesn't have to carry it. The room felt still, completely still. Claire's grip tightened on their mug again, though the coffee had long since cooled. And that's why you look at her like that, she said, almost to herself. Marcus met her eyes. Yeah, he said. Claire looked away, not because she wanted to, but because she had to, because something in her chest had shifted again, deeper this time, harder to ignore. For years, she had built her life around control, around certainty, around never letting anything get close enough to change her. And now, in a small, worn-down place with chipped mugs and a flickering light, a man with nothing she recognized as power was undoing all of it. She set the mug down slowly. I don't know how to do that, she admitted. Marcus frowned slightly. Do what? She looked at him again, her composure thinner now, more human. Let it go, she said. Marcus didn't answer right away. He leaned back, considering her. Then he nodded toward the counter. You see Mr. Alvarez? He said. Claire glanced over. The older man was wiping down the same spot on the counter for the third time, humming softly to himself. He lost his son a few years back, Marcus said. Claire's eyes flicked back to him. What happened? Doesn't matter, Marcus said gently. What matters is, he didn't let that loss turn him into something else. Claire looked back at Mr. Alvarez again, at the quiet way he moved, at the small kindness in everything he did. That's a choice? She asked. Marcus nodded. Every day, he said. Claire sat with that. Really sat with it. Outside, the rain began to slow, the drops softer now, less urgent. Inside, the air felt different. Lighter, but also heavier. Because now there was something she couldn't ignore anymore. Something she couldn't solve with a decision or a strategy. Something that didn't fit into any system she'd ever built. And for the first time in a long time, Claire Whitmore didn't know what came next. The realization didn't hit her all at once. It came slowly, like the warmth in the room, settling into places she hadn't noticed were cold. She sat there, hands resting flat against the table now, no longer gripping the mug like it was something to hold on to. The steam had faded, the coffee had gone untouched, but she didn't reach for it again. Across from her, Marcus had gone quiet, not distant, just still. Lila had drifted fully asleep against his side, her head resting against his arm, her breathing soft and even. One of Marcus's hands rested lightly on her shoulder, steady and protective, without even thinking about it. Claire watched that. She couldn't stop watching it, the way he didn't check his phone, the way he didn't seem distracted by anything else, the way everything about him adjusted, naturally, to make space for her. She looked down at her own hands, empty, then back at him. "You don't seem afraid," she said quietly. Marcus didn't look up right away. "Of what?" he asked. "Losing everything," she said. The words came out heavier than she intended. Marcus let out a slow breath. "I've already lost things," he said. "Doesn't mean I'm not afraid." Claire tilted her head slightly. "Then why don't you look like it?" That made him glance up. He studied her for a moment, like he was deciding how much of the truth she could handle. "Because fear doesn't help her sleep," he said, nodding gently toward Lila. Claire's chest tightened again. There it was. Every answer, somehow, led back to the same place, not him. Her. "What about you?" she asked. "What about me, when she's not around?" Claire said. "When it's just you." Marcus leaned back in his chair, the wood creaking softly. He didn't answer right away, because that was a different question, and they both knew it. "Then I feel it," he said finally. Claire held his gaze. "All of it?" she asked. "Yeah, and you don't push it away?" Marcus gave a small shake of his head. "No point," he said. "It just comes back stronger." Claire swallowed slowly. That was the opposite of everything she'd built her life around. She had spent years pushing things away, feelings, doubt, anything that made her hesitate. She had learned how to compartmentalize so well. She could walk into a boardroom minutes after something personal fell apart and still deliver a flawless presentation. That had been her strength, her advantage, the thing that made her valuable. And tonight, that same strength had made her replaceable. She leaned back in her chair, her eyes drifting toward the window again. The rain had softened to a mist now, the street outside reflecting the city lights like a Pocan mirror. "I thought control was the answer," she said. Marcus didn't respond. "I thought if I could manage everything, predict everything, then nothing could hurt me." She let out a small, tired breath. "I was wrong," Marcus nodded slightly. "Yeah," he said. "Most people are about that." Claire almost smiled. Almost. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was something else, something quieter. Like both of them were sitting in the same space now, without trying to define it. Mr. Alvarez turned off the television in the corner, the sudden absence of sound making the room feel even more still. He wiped down the counter one last time, then glanced over at Marcus. "You closing tonight?" he asked. Marcus looked at the clock on the wall. It was later than he thought. "Yeah," he said. "I got it." Mr. Alvarez nodded once, grabbing his coat from the hook. "Don't stay too long," he added, his eyes flicking briefly to Claire. "Storm's not done with the city yet." Marcus followed his glance, then nodded. I won't. The older man stepped out into the damp night, pulling the door closed behind him. The bell chimed softly, then faded. Now it was just the three of them and the quiet. Claire shifted in her seat. You do this every night? She asked. Do what? Stay, she said. Help be this. Marcus frowned slightly, like he didn't understand the question. I just do what needs doing. Doing, he said. That's not what most people do. Most people got different problems, he replied. Claire leaned forward slightly, her voice softer now. And yours aren't enough. Marcus looked at her. Really looked. You think kindness is something you do when life's easy? He asked. The question landed harder than she expected. Claire opened her mouth, closed it because she didn't have an answer. Marcus leaned forward too, his voice steady but firm. It's the opposite, he said. It's what you do when things aren't. The words sat between them, simple, unavoidable. Claire felt something shift again, deeper this time, something she couldn't name yet. But it wasn't comfortable. It was necessary. Tell me something, Marcus said after a moment. She looked up. Why'd you ask that question back there, he asked. At the station. Claire blinked. She hadn't expected that. I don't know, she admitted. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You don't know. She shook her head slowly. It just came out, she said. I saw you. The way you looked at her. And it didn't make sense. Why not? Because you don't have anything, she said. The words hung there, too blunt, too honest. Claire realized it the second they left her mouth. Marcus didn't react the way she expected. He didn't get angry, didn't shut down. He just leaned back slightly, considering her. That's what you see, he said. Claire held his gaze. Isn't it true? Marcus glanced down at Lila, then back at her. No, he said quietly. The certainty in his voice caught her off guard. Then what do you have? She asked. Marcus didn't answer right away. He adjusted his arm slightly so Lila was more comfortable, pulling his jacket a little tighter around her. Then he looked back at Claire. I've got enough, he said. Claire shook her head. That's not an answer. It is, Marcus said. She leaned forward again, her voice sharper now, frustration slipping through. No, it's not, she said. It's vague. It doesn't mean anything. Marcus didn't move, didn't raise his voice. Means I've got what I need, he said. And what about everything else? She pressed. The things you don't have? The things you've lost? Marcus's eyes didn't leave hers. That's not the question you asked, he said. Claire froze, because he was right. She had asked him something else, something simpler, something that didn't have room for all the complications she was trying to force into it now. The room went quiet again. He leaned forward slightly. You asked me why I look at her like I have everything, he said. Claire's breath caught, just slightly, and you still haven't answered, she said. Marcus nodded. You're right, he said. He looked down at Lila one more time, then back at Claire, and for the first time since she walked into that station, he was ready. To answer that, he said quietly, you gotta understand something first. Claire didn't move, didn't speak, she just waited. Marcus took a slow breath, and the moment shifted again, right to the edge of something that was about to change everything. Marcus didn't rush. He never did. He let the silence sit there, heavy but steady, like it deserved its space, the kind of silence that made people uncomfortable if they weren't used to it. But Claire didn't look away this time. She stayed, waiting, not analyzing, not interrupting, just listening. Marcus exhaled slowly, his hand still resting lightly on Lila's shoulder, feeling the quiet rhythm of her breathing. You ever notice, he began, his voice low. How people always think having everything means the same thing. Claire didn't answer. She didn't need to. Money, he continued. Power. A nice place to live. Being able to walk into a room and have people pay attention. He looked up at her. That's what you're used to, right? Claire hesitated, then nodded. Yes, Marcus nodded back, like he expected that. Nothing wrong with those things, he said. They make life easier. But? She asked. But they don't decide how you feel when the room gets quiet, he said. That landed deeper than anything else he'd said so far. Claire's fingers tightened slightly on the edge of the table. Marcus leaned back again, his eyes drifting for just a second, like he was looking at something far away, something older than this moment. I used to chase that stuff too, he said. Not the big version of it. Just enough to feel like I wasn't falling behind everybody else. Claire's brow furrowed slightly. You don't seem like someone who ever cared about that. Marcus gave a faint smile. That's because you're meeting me now, he said. Something in his tone made her sit up just a little straighter. There was a time, he continued, when I thought if I could just get ahead, steady job, decent place, keep things together, then everything would finally make sense. He paused. It didn't. Claire watched him closely now. Because this wasn't philosophy anymore, this was personal. What happened? She asked quietly. Marcus looked down at Lila again. His hand moved slightly, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. Then he spoke. Life, he said simply. The word carried more weight than it should have. Things fall apart, he added. Sometimes all at once. Sometimes slow enough that you don't notice until it's already gone. Claire swallowed. She knew exactly what that felt like. You lose things, Marcus went on. Plans, people. The version of yourself you thought you were gonna be. The room felt smaller now, closer. And at some point, he said, you realize none of that stuff was the thing holding you together in the first place. Claire's voice came out softer than she intended. Then what was? Marcus met her eyes again. This, he said, nodding toward Lila. Claire's breath caught, not because she didn't expect the answer, but because of the way he said it. Like it wasn't just about love. It was about purpose. She's not just my daughter, Marcus continued. She's the reason I don't get to give up. Claire felt something tighten in her chest, a slow, unfamiliar pressure. So when you asked me why I look at her like I have everything, he leaned forward slightly now, closer, more certain. It's because when I do, he said, I remember what matters. The words hung there, simple, but they didn't feel simple. They felt final. Claire blinked, her eyes stinging before she even realized it. That's it? She asked, almost whispering. Marcus didn't flinch. That's it, he said. She shook her head slightly, her composure starting to crack in a way she hadn't allowed in years. That doesn't make sense, she said. It does, Marcus replied calmly. No, she insisted, her voice rising just enough to carry something sharp beneath it. You're telling me that everything you've lost, everything you don't have, it just doesn't matter. Marcus's expression didn't change. I'm telling you, it doesn't decide who I am, he said. Claire leaned back, exhaling shakily. That's not how the world works, Marcus tilted his head slightly. Maybe not the world you're used to, he said. That hit harder than anything else, because it was true. Claire had spent her entire life inside a world that ran on different rules, performance, results, control. And now she was sitting across from someone who lived completely outside of that system, and somehow, he wasn't broken by it. That didn't make sense. It couldn't. Her hands curled slightly against the table. Do you have any idea what it takes to build something from nothing? She asked. Marcus didn't hesitate. Yeah, he said. She froze, because she realized, too late, that she had asked the wrong person that question. He didn't need boardrooms or investors or strategies. He had built something too, just not something she could measure. Claire looked down at her hands again, then back at him. "I've spent years making sure I never lost control," she said quietly, "of anything." Marcus nodded slowly. "And how'd that work out?" The question wasn't cruel, but it was direct. Claire let out a breath that almost turned into a laugh, but didn't quite make it. "I lost it anyway," she said. Marcus didn't look surprised. "Yeah," he said, "that happens." The simplicity of his response broke something open inside her. Not dramatically, not all at once, just enough. Her vision blurred slightly, and she blinked quickly, trying to steady herself. But the feeling didn't go away. It built, quiet, relentless. "You make it sound so easy," she said, her voice thinner now. "It's not," Marcus said. "Then how do you do it?" That question wasn't sharp anymore. It wasn't defensive. It was honest. Marcus leaned back again, considering her. "You stop trying to win," he said. Claire stared at him. "What does that mean?" "It means you stop treating life like something you can control," he said, "and start treating it like something you're part of." Claire shook her head, overwhelmed. "That's not how I've lived." "I can see that," Marcus said gently. The gentleness broke her, not completely, but enough. A tear slipped down before she could stop it. She wiped it away quickly, almost angrily. "I don't do this," she said under her breath. Marcus didn't comment. He didn't need to, because the moment had already happened. She sat there, breathing uneven now, trying to pull herself back together. But something had shifted too far, too deep. "You asked me why I care," Marcus said quietly. Claire looked up again. "I care because I know what it feels like to lose everything that doesn't matter," he said, "and still have the one thing that does." He nodded toward Lila again. "And I'm not about to pretend that isn't enough." Claire stared at him. And this time, she didn't argue, because for the first time, she understood. Not completely, not fully, but enough to feel it. Enough to know that something inside her had been wrong for a long time, and that whatever she had built had never given her this. Silence settled over the room again. But it wasn't heavy anymore. It was something else, something quieter, something real. And Claire Whitmore, for the first time in years, didn't try to control it. She just sat there and felt it. The feeling didn't pass the way she expected it to. It didn't fade with a breath, didn't disappear when she blinked hard or straightened her posture. It stayed, quiet but firm, like something had finally reached the surface after years of being buried too deep to touch. Claire kept her eyes on the table for a moment longer, watching the faint outline of her reflection in the worn wood. It looked unfamiliar. Not because her face had changed, but because something behind it had. She let out a slow breath, her shoulders lowering in a way they hadn't in years. Across from her, Marcus didn't move, didn't interrupt. He just waited, because he knew something she didn't yet. Some things only make sense when you're ready to feel them. Lila stirred slightly in her sleep, shifting closer into Marcus's side. He adjusted his arm instinctively, steady and gentle, never breaking the quiet rhythm that had settled in the room. Claire noticed that too. Everything about him felt grounded, like nothing could shake him completely. And that didn't make sense. Not after everything he had said, not after everything she had seen. "You're not angry," she said finally. Marcus looked at her. "About what?" "About any of it," she said, her voice steadier now, but still carrying something fragile underneath. "The way people treat you, the things you've lost, the way the world works." Marcus thought about it for a moment. Then he nodded slightly. "I get angry," he said. Claire frowned. "Then where is it?" He gave a small, almost tired smile. I just don't let it drive. That answer landed differently. Claire leaned back, studying him like she was seeing something for the first time. You talk like you figured something out, she said. Marcus shook his head. No, he replied. I just stopped lying to myself about what matters. Claire's eyes narrowed slightly. And what does matter? She asked. Marcus didn't answer right away. He looked down at Lila again, then back at Claire. Showing up, he said. Even when it's hard. Even when nobody notices. Claire let that sit, because in her world, everything was about being noticed, being recognized, being valued. And here was someone who had built his life around something completely invisible. That's not enough, she said quietly. Marcus didn't react. Why not? He asked. Claire hesitated. The answer that came to her first didn't feel right anymore. It just isn't, she said, less certain now. Marcus leaned forward slightly. Or maybe, he said, it's just not enough for the life you built. That hit harder than she expected, because she knew he was right. Her life had never been about enough. It had been about more growth, more control, more influence, and somewhere along the way, she had lost track of why. A faint vibration buzzed against the table. Claire's breath caught. Her eyes dropped instantly. Her phone, she hadn't realized she had placed it there. The screen lit up. A name flashed across it. Then another. Then 3 more. Calls, messages, notifications stacking on top of each other. Marcus watched her reaction, didn't ask, didn't need to. Claire stared at the screen like it might disappear if she didn't move. Then slowly, she turned it face down. Marcus raised an eyebrow slightly. You not gonna get that? He asked. Claire shook her head. No. The word came out faster than she expected, more certain. That surprised her. Important? Marcus asked. Claire let out a breath. It used to be, she said. Silence followed. Not empty, just full of everything she wasn't saying. Marcus leaned back again, studying her now. You always this hard on yourself? He asked. Claire blinked. What? You keep acting like you're supposed to have everything figured out, he said. I am, she replied instinctively. Marcus tilted his head. Says who? Claire opened her mouth. Closed it. Because for the first time, she didn't have an answer, and that scared her more than anything else. I built something, she said after a moment, her voice quieter now. Something that works, something people depend on. Marcus nodded. I believe that. And now it's slipping, she said. Marcus didn't interrupt. Out of my control, she added. There it was again. Control. Marcus let out a slow breath. You ever think, he said, maybe it was never really yours to control in the first place? Claire looked up sharply. That's not how this works, she said. Marcus shrugged. Maybe not where you come from, he said. But out here, things got a way of reminding you real quick. Claire shook her head, frustrated again. But it wasn't the same frustration as before. It wasn't defensive. It was cracking. You're telling me everything I built doesn't matter? She said. Marcus met her eyes. I'm telling you, he said. It doesn't matter the way you thought it did. That silence again, but this time, it wasn't calm. It was shifting, unstable. Claire's phone buzzed again. Longer this time, insistent. She stared at it, then slowly, she flipped it over. The screen lit up instantly. A message, then another, then a headline notification. Her breath caught. Marcus saw it in her face before she said anything. What is it? He asked. Claire didn't answer right away. Her eyes scanned the screen, reading, processing, breaking. They did it, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus frowned. Did what? Claire swallowed. They voted, she said. Her fingers tightened around the phone. They removed me. The words hung in the air, heavy, final. Marcus didn't speak. He didn't offer comfort. He just let the moment land, because some things needed space. Claire stared at the screen, her vision blurring slightly again. Years, decisions, sacrifices, all reduced to a single notification, a single moment. Gone. She let out a slow breath that didn't steady anything. "I'm not the CEO anymore," she said. The words sounded strange, like they belonged to someone else. Marcus leaned forward slightly. "And now?" he asked. Claire looked up at him. Lost. Completely, unmistakably lost. "I don't know," she said. And this time, there was no control left in her voice, only truth. Outside, the rain picked up again, tapping harder against the glass. Inside, the warmth remained. But something had shifted, not just in her, in everything. Because now, she wasn't just someone out of place. She was someone who had lost the place she belonged to, and for the first time, Claire Whitmore didn't know who she was without it. The words echoed inside her, louder than the rain against the window, louder than the quiet hum of the lights overhead. Not the CEO, not the one in control, not the person people listened to without question. Just Claire. And she had no idea what that meant anymore. She stared at the phone in her hand, the screen still glowing faintly, as if it were waiting for her to react. To call someone, to fix it, to do something. That's what she always did. Fix things, move pieces, regain control. But her thumb didn't move. She didn't call anyone, didn't open the messages, because for once, she knew it wouldn't matter. Across the table, Marcus watched her carefully, but not with pity, not with judgment, just understanding. "That's a heavy way to find out," he said quietly. Claire let out a hollow breath, setting the phone down like it had weight. "They didn't even call me," she said. "Not one of them." Marcus nodded slowly. "Sometimes people don't say things out loud," he said. "Doesn't mean they weren't thinking it for a while." Claire gave a short, bitter laugh. "Oh, I know they were," she said. "I just thought I was ahead of it." "You probably were," Marcus replied. At first, she looked up at him. "What changed?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "You did," he said. That landed hard. Claire sat there processing it, because deep down, she knew he wasn't wrong. Her decisions had shifted. Her focus had changed. She had started asking different questions. Questions that didn't always lead to the most profitable answers. And somewhere along the way, that had made her expendable. She leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling for a moment. "I built that company from nothing," she said. Marcus nodded. "I believe you. I gave it everything," she added. Marcus didn't interrupt. "And now it's just gone." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of everything she hadn't allowed herself to feel yet. Loss, not just of a title, but of identity, of purpose, of the version of herself she had spent years becoming. Lila shifted again, her small hand tightening briefly in her sleep. Marcus adjusted his arm, grounding himself in that simple, steady connection. Claire watched that too. Always that. Something about it kept pulling her back. "What do you do?" she asked quietly. "When the thing that defined you disappears?" Marcus didn't answer right away. He leaned back, thinking. "First thing," he said after a moment, "you stop pretending it was the only thing that mattered." Claire shook her head. "That's easy for you to say, is it?" Marcus asked. She looked at him, really looked, at his worn jacket hanging by the door, at the tired lines in his face, at the quiet strength in the way he held himself. And for the first time, she realized something she hadn't before. He had lost things too, things she couldn't see, things he didn't talk about, and he was still standing. "You don't even know what I've lost," she said. Marcus met her gaze. "You don't know what I've lost either," he replied. That shut her down, not because it was harsh, but because it was true. The room fell quiet again. Outside, the rain began to slow once more. the storm pulling back just enough to let the city breathe. Inside, the warmth remained, but it felt different now, heavier, more real. Claire rubbed her hands together slightly, as if trying to ground herself. "I don't have anywhere to go tonight," she said. The admission came out quietly, almost like she wasn't sure she meant to say it. Marcus didn't react immediately. He just watched her. "Don't you have a place?" he asked. Claire gave a faint, tired smile. "I have places," she said, "just not one that feels like mine right now." Marcus nodded slowly. He understood that, more than she realized. "You can stay here for a bit," he said, "until you figure it out." Claire blinked, surprised. "Here?" He shrugged. "Mr. Alvarez won't mind," he said. "He's helped worse cases than this." Claire almost laughed again. "Almost. Don't think I qualify as a case," she said. Marcus raised an eyebrow slightly. "You sure about that?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "No," she admitted. That was new too, admitting things, not correcting them, not reframing them, just letting them be true. Marcus stood slowly, careful not to wake Lila, and walked over to the counter. He grabbed a folded blanket from a shelf beneath it and brought it back, placing it gently on the chair beside Claire. "You'll want this," he said. Claire looked at it, then at him. "You don't even know me," she said. Marcus shrugged again. "Don't need to," he replied. That simple answer hit deeper than anything else, because in her world, everything required knowing. Credentials, background, proof, and here. None of that mattered. She reached for the blanket slowly, pulling it around her shoulders. It was worn, soft from use, and warmer than anything she had felt all night. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly. Marcus didn't hesitate. "Because you needed it," he said. Claire's throat tightened slightly. No calculation, no expectation, just that. She looked away, blinking once, steadying herself. The clock on the wall ticked forward, each second louder in the quiet room. For a moment, everything felt still, like the night had paused. But it hadn't. Because outside, things were already shifting, decisions being made, consequences unfolding, and neither of them knew yet how much was about to change. Claire leaned back in her chair, the blanket wrapped around her, her eyes drifting toward the window again. The rain had almost stopped. Just a light drizzle now, but the streets were still wet, still reflecting everything upside down. She closed her eyes for just a second, and when she opened them, she didn't look like someone in control anymore. She looked like someone standing at the edge of something unfamiliar, uncertain, something real. And for the first time in a long time, Claire Whitmore didn't try to step back from it. She just stayed. The night stretched quietly after that. At some point, Marcus dimmed the lights, leaving only the soft glow from behind the counter and the faint streetlight filtering through the window. Lila slept soundly, curled against him, wrapped in his jacket like it was the safest place in the world. Claire didn't sleep. She tried. She leaned back in the chair, the worn blanket pulled close, her eyes closing for a few seconds at a time. But every time she drifted, something pulled her back. A thought, a memory, a voice from earlier that day echoing in her head. "This is a necessary transition, Claire. The company needs stability. We appreciate everything you've done." She opened her eyes again. The room was still. Marcus hadn't moved much, just shifted slightly to keep Lila comfortable. He looked like he was resting, but not fully asleep. The kind of half-awareness that came from years of never letting your guard down completely. Claire watched him. And for the first time, she understood something she had never considered before. Rest didn't come from control. It came from trust. Trust in something, someone, something she didn't have. She turned her gaze toward the window, The rain had stopped completely now. The glass was streaked with leftover drops, catching the dim orange glow of the streetlights outside. The city looked different without the storm, quieter, exposed. Eventually, the sky began to lighten, not all at once, just a slow shift from deep black to a soft, uncertain gray. Morning. Claire sat up slowly, the blanket slipping from her shoulders. Her body felt stiff, unfamiliar with sleeping in a chair. But the discomfort barely registered because something else had already taken its place. Reality. Marcus stirred slightly as Lila moved, her small voice breaking the quiet. "Daddy? I'm here," he said immediately, his voice low and steady. She blinked awake, rubbing her eyes. "Did we go home?" Marcus hesitated for just a fraction of a second. "Not yet," he said. Lila nodded like that made sense, like she had already learned not to expect easy answers. Claire felt that. Deeply. She stood slowly, stretching slightly, her eyes adjusting to the pale light creeping into the room. For a moment, everything felt almost normal, like the night had been something separate, something contained. But then, Marcus's phone rang. The sound cut through the quiet, sharp and sudden. He frowned slightly, pulling it from his pocket. He didn't recognize the number, but something about the timing. He answered. "Hello?" Claire watched his expression shift. Subtle at first, then tighter, more focused. "I'm at work right now," he said. A pause, his jaw clenched. "What do you mean revoked?" Claire's stomach dropped, because she knew that tone. Marcus stood up slowly, moving a few steps away, but not far enough to hide the conversation. "I paid what I could," he said, his voice controlled now. "You know that." Another pause. Longer this time. Claire watched the color drain slightly from his face. "That's not what we agreed on," he said. His free hand curled into a fist at his side. "When?" he asked. Silence. Then, 48 hours? He repeated. Lila looked up at him, her expression changing. "What's wrong?" she asked softly. Marcus didn't answer her right away. He stayed on the phone for another moment. Then, "Yeah," he said quietly. "I understand." He hung up. The room felt different instantly. Tighter, like something had just closed in around them. Claire stepped forward slightly. "What happened?" she asked. Marcus didn't look at her right away. He ran a hand over his face, exhaling slowly. "They're raising the rent," he said. "That doesn't sound like—" "They already did," he cut in gently. "I just couldn't keep up." Claire felt her chest tighten. "And now?" she asked. Marcus looked at her. "They want me out," he said. The words landed hard. "When?" He didn't look away this time. 2 days. Lila went very still. "Are we moving?" she asked, her voice small. Marcus crouched down in front of her immediately. "Hey," he said softly. "We're gonna figure it out, okay?" "But where are we going?" she asked. He hesitated. Just for a second. Claire saw it, that tiny break in certainty, and it hit her harder than anything from the night before, because this wasn't theory. This wasn't loss from a distance. This was real, immediate. "Somewhere," Marcus said gently. "We always do." Lila nodded slowly, trusting him even when the answer didn't make sense. Claire turned away slightly, her mind racing. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not like this. Not after everything he had said. Not after everything she had just learned. "This is because of money?" she asked, her voice sharper now. Marcus stood up again. "Usually is," he said. "That's it?" she pressed. "They just push you out?" Marcus shrugged slightly. "Building got new management," he said. "Different priorities." Claire let out a breath, her frustration rising. "That's not right." Marcus looked at her. "No," he said. It's not, but you're just going to accept it? She asked. What do you want me to do? He replied calmly. Fight it, she said. With what? Marcus asked. The question hit her like a wall, because for the first time, she didn't have an answer. No legal team. No leverage, no control, just reality. Claire looked at him, something shifting again inside her. Stronger this time, more urgent, because now she wasn't just watching, she was involved. What about this place? She asked, gesturing around the small shop. Marcus shook his head. This isn't mine, he said, and it's not enough. Claire felt the weight of that, the difference between having a place to sit and having somewhere to belong. Marcus turned slightly, grabbing his jacket. I gotta open up, he said quietly. Morning crowd comes in early. Claire stared at him. That's it? She asked. You just keep going? Marcus paused, then looked back at her. What else is there? He said. The simplicity of it broke something open again, because she knew, in his world, stopping wasn't an option. Lila slipped her hand into his again. I'm not scared, she said softly. Marcus smiled at her. I know you're not. Claire watched them, and for the first time, the question wasn't just about him anymore. It was about her. What would she do? If everything she had just lost was replaced with something like this? The door creaked open as Marcus unlocked it, letting the morning air drift in. The city was waking up, people moving, cars passing, life continuing. But for Marcus, everything had just changed. And for Claire, she was no longer standing outside of it. She was right in the middle. The morning air felt colder than it should have. Not because of the weather. The rain had passed, leaving behind a damp chill that clung to the sidewalks. But because everything had shifted, and nothing around them seemed to notice. Cars rolled by like any other day. People walked past the small shop without looking in. Some checked their phones, some carried coffee, some moved with purpose. The city didn't stop. It never did. Marcus stepped outside for a moment, flipping the sign on the door from closed to open. The metal hook scraped softly as it settled into place. He stood there for a second longer than necessary, looking out at the street, not searching, not hoping, just taking it in. Like he was measuring something. Behind him, Claire watched from inside. She had seen men stand like that before, in boardrooms, on balconies overlooking skylines, men who were about to make decisions that affected thousands of people. But Marcus didn't look like that. He looked like a man who had already made his decision, and was now living with it. He turned back inside. Coffee's still warm, he said, like nothing had changed. Claire blinked. Are you doing that? She asked. Marcus paused. Doing what? Acting like everything is normal, she said, her voice tighter now. Like you didn't just get told you're losing your home. Marcus walked past her, heading behind the counter. He grabbed a clean mug, poured the last of the coffee into it, then slid it toward her. I didn't say it was normal, he replied. Claire stared at him. Then what is it? She asked. Marcus leaned against the counter, crossing his arms loosely. It's happening, he said. That was it. No panic, no anger, just truth. Claire shook her head, pacing once across the small room. That's not an answer, she said. It is where I'm from, Marcus replied. She stopped, turned to face him. Where you're from doesn't make this okay, she said. Marcus met her eyes. I didn't say it did. The tension between them shifted again, this time sharper, more immediate. Claire took a step closer. You should fight this, she said. There are laws, tenant protections. You can't just be pushed out like that. Marcus tilted his head slightly. You think they don't know that? He asked. Claire opened her mouth, then stopped. Because she did know. Of course they knew. Systems didn't break by accident. They bent strategically. until people like Marcus had no room left. Claire looked away for a moment, her jaw tightening. "This is wrong," she said again, quieter now. Marcus nodded once. "Yeah," he said. "And you're just going to accept it?" she asked. Marcus pushed himself off the counter, moving toward the small stove. "I'm going to deal with it," he said. "That's not the same thing. It is when you don't have a choice." Claire felt that, not intellectually, not as an idea, but as something real. For the first time in her life, she was standing in a situation she couldn't solve with a phone call, a contract, a decision, and it unsettled her more than she expected. The door creaked open. A man stepped inside, shaking off the last of the rain from his jacket. "Morning," he said, nodding toward Marcus. "Morning," Marcus replied. The man took a seat near the window without asking for a menu. Marcus moved automatically, a mug, pouring coffee, sliding it across the counter like he had done it 100 times, because he had. Life didn't stop, even when everything else did. Claire watched it all unfold, the routine, the normalcy, the quiet dignity of it. And something inside her twisted. Because she knew. If this had happened to her yesterday, the entire world would have stopped. Meetings canceled, calls made, people scrambling. But here, no one even knew. The man by the window sipped his coffee, glancing briefly at the TV now back on in the corner. The ticker at the bottom scrolled past again. Claire's eyes caught it, her company's name, a headline. She froze. The man noticed too. "Hey," he said casually, nodding toward the screen. "That's that big healthcare company, right? The one out of downtown?" Marcus glanced up. "Yeah, I think so," he said. "Looks like they got a new CEO," the man added, taking another sip. "Some guy named—" He squinted slightly, reading the screen. "Daniel Hartwell." Claire's breath caught. Marcus didn't notice, but she did, because she knew that name. Board member, quiet, strategic, patient. The one who had smiled at her just hours before the vote. She turned away from the TV slowly. The world hadn't just moved on. It had replaced her. Already. Marcus set another cup down, wiping his hands on a towel. "You all right?" he asked. Claire didn't answer right away. She was staring at the floor now, at nothing, at everything. "They didn't wait," she said finally. Marcus frowned slightly. "For what? For me to leave," she said. The words sounded hollow now, less sharp, more empty. Marcus followed her gaze to the floor, then back to her. "People don't usually wait," he said. Claire laughed once, a short, bitter sound. "No," she said. "They don't." Silence settled again, but it wasn't the same silence as before. This one was heavier, colder. Because now, there was no illusion left. Marcus leaned back against the counter again, watching her carefully. "You still got something," he said. Claire looked up. "What?" Time, he said. 2 days," she shook her head. "That's not enough." Marcus shrugged. "It's what there is." Claire stared at him. And for a moment, she saw it clearly, the difference between them. He worked with what he had. She had always tried to change what was, and now, she didn't know how to do either. The bell above the door chimed again as another customer stepped in. The morning picked up, quietly, naturally, like nothing had changed. But everything had. Claire looked around the small room one more time, at the chipped mugs, the worn tables, the quiet acts of kindness that didn't need recognition. And she realized this was real, more real than anything she had left behind. And it was slipping, too. She took a slow breath, then another, and for the first time since she lost everything, a new question formed in her mind. Not about control, not about power, but about choice. What would she do Now that she couldn't go back, the question didn't leave her. It followed her through every movement, every breath, every glance she stole around the small shop. As the morning settled in, the world had already decided for her. Her company was gone, her title was gone. The version of her that knew exactly what to do in every situation, gone, and yet everything around her kept moving like nothing had changed. Marcus moved between the counter and the tables, pouring coffee, wiping surfaces, checking on customers with a quiet consistency that didn't ask for attention. Lila sat at the end of the counter now, drawing again on a piece of paper Mr. Alvarez had left behind, her legs swinging gently as if the world outside didn't exist. Claire stood still for a long moment, watching, trying to understand how something so fragile could feel so solid. A man at the far table stood up, leaving a few crumpled bills beside his empty cup. Marcus picked them up without counting, just nodding toward the door as the man left. "Take care," Marcus said. The man nodded back. "Always do," he replied, simple, easy, like trust wasn't something you had to earn with contracts or signatures. Claire walked slowly toward the counter. "You don't even check?" she asked. Marcus glanced at the money in his hand. "Don't need to," he said. Claire frowned. "That's not smart." Marcus gave a small shrug. "Depends what you're trying to protect." Claire stared at him, because in her world, you protected everything, always. But here, he chose differently, and somehow, he wasn't losing. That didn't make sense. Or maybe, it made too much sense. Claire leaned her hands against the counter, looking out through the front window. The city had fully woken now, cars moving, people walking faster, life pushing forward, and somewhere in that movement, her old life was continuing without her. She could go back, not to her position, but to that world, the people, the system. She could call someone, fix something, reclaim part of it. That's what she had always done. But the thought didn't sit right anymore, not after last night, not after him. "Marcus," she said quietly. He looked up, she hesitated, then asked the question that had been building since the moment she saw the headline on the screen. "What would you do if you were me?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. He set the cloth down, wiped his hands, and leaned slightly against the counter. "You sure you want my answer?" he asked. Claire nodded. For the first time, she said, "I don't trust my own." Marcus studied her for a moment. Then he nodded once. "All right," he said. He looked out the window for a second, like he was making sure the words were clear before he said them. "Stop thinking about what you lost," he said. Claire blinked. "That's it?" Marcus looked back at her. "No," he said. "That's just the first step." She crossed her arms slightly. "Then what's the rest?" Marcus leaned forward just a little. "Figure out what you still have," he said. Claire let out a quiet breath. "That's not much." Marcus shook his head. "That's not what I see." Claire frowned. "What do you see?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "I see someone who just got knocked out of a life that wasn't working anymore," he said. Claire's jaw tightened. It was working. "For who?" Marcus asked. The question hit harder than she expected, because for the first time, she wasn't sure. Marcus continued, his voice steady. "You said it yourself," he said. "You stopped seeing people." Claire looked away. "Maybe getting pushed out is the only reason you're standing here right now." She turned back to him sharply. "You think I should be grateful?" Marcus didn't flinch. "I think you should be honest," he said. Silence filled the space between them, heavy, unavoidable. Claire felt something rise in her chest again. Not anger, not exactly, something deeper, something closer to truth. She looked around the shop again, at Lila, at the drawings, at the quiet rhythm of everything that didn't need her to control it. And for the first time, she saw it clearly. Her life hadn't been built around people. It had been built around outcomes, and somewhere along the way, she had forgotten the difference. Her hands dropped slowly into her sides. "What if I don't know how to do that?" she asked. Marcus's expression softened slightly. "Then you learn," he said. Claire shook her head. "It's not that simple, no," Marcus agreed. "It's not." He glanced toward Lila, then back at Claire. "But it starts with one choice." Claire looked at him. "What choice?" Marcus met her eyes. "The one you're avoiding," he said. Claire felt her breath catch, because she knew exactly what he meant. Go back or don't. Fight for what she lost or let it go. Rebuild the same life or build something new. The choice wasn't complicated. It was just hard. The door opened again, a rush of cool air slipping into the warm space. A woman stepped inside, tired, carrying a child who looked half asleep on her shoulder. She moved slowly, like every step took effort. Marcus noticed immediately. He grabbed a chair, pulling it out before she even asked. "Sit," he said gently. The woman nodded gratefully, easing herself down. "I don't have much," she said quietly. Marcus waved it off. "You're fine," he replied. He turned, already reaching for a bowl, pouring something warm, something simple. No hesitation. No calculation. Claire watched it all, the way he moved, the way he gave, the way it didn't cost him anything, and yet meant everything. Something inside her shifted again, this time clearer, stronger, because for the first time since she lost everything, she wasn't thinking about what she could take back. She was thinking about what she could give, and that terrified her, because she had never lived that way before, but it also, for the first time, felt right. Claire took a slow breath, then another, and when she looked at Marcus again, her expression had changed, not fixed, not certain, but decided. "What if I stayed?" she asked. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Here?" he asked. Claire nodded slowly. "For a little while," she said, "until I figure things out." Marcus studied her, long enough that she felt it. Then he nodded once. "Then you stay," he said. "Simple. Just like that. No questions, no conditions." Claire let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. And for the first time, she wasn't trying to go back. She was choosing what came next. The decision didn't feel powerful. It didn't come with clarity or certainty or the kind of confidence she used to carry into every room she walked into. It felt quiet, unfinished, but it was real. Claire stood there for a moment longer, letting it settle, letting the weight of it move through her instead of trying to control it. Marcus had already turned back to the counter, helping the woman with the child settle in. He didn't make a big deal out of it, didn't acknowledge Claire's decision with anything more than that small nod, like it was enough, like she was enough. That was new. Claire moved slowly, stepping away from the counter and toward the small back area of the shop. There was a narrow hallway behind a half-open door, leading to a storage room cluttered with boxes, extra chairs, and a small sink that looked like it had seen better days. It wasn't much, but it was something. She rested her hand against the doorframe for a second, taking it in. This was where she was now. Not a corner office, not a glass building overlooking the city, a back room behind a small neighborhood kitchen. And strangely, it didn't feel like a step down. It felt like a step inward. She let out a breath, then turned back. The morning moved forward in small, steady moments. More people came in, a construction worker with tired eyes and muddy boots, a young woman carrying too many bags, an older man who didn't speak much but nodded gratefully every time Marcus refilled his cup. Claire watched all of it, at first from a distance, then closer. "Can I help?" she asked, almost surprising herself. Marcus looked up. For a moment, He didn't answer. Then he handed her a stack of clean mugs. "Dry those," he said. "No instructions. No explanation. Just trust." Claire took them. Her hands felt unfamiliar doing something so simple. She wasn't used to this kind of work. No metrics, no efficiency systems, no one watching to measure how well she did it. Just a towel, a mug, and time. She dried one slowly, then another. The rhythm came quicker than she expected. Simple tasks had a way of doing that. Lila looked up from her drawings, watching Claire with quiet curiosity. "You're helping," she said. Claire smiled faintly. "I guess I am." Lila nodded like that made perfect sense. "Daddy says helping makes things better," she added. Claire glanced at Marcus. He didn't look up, but she could see the small shift in his shoulders. "He heard it. Does it?" Claire asked softly. Lila shrugged. "Sometimes," she said, "but it always helps a little." Claire let that sit. Because in her world, things were either fixed or they weren't. Here, a little mattered. The morning passed that way, slow, steady, real, until the bell above the door chimed again. But this time, everything changed. Claire felt it before she even turned around, the shift in the room, the pause. Marcus straightened slightly behind the counter. Lila stopped drawing. Claire turned. A man stood in the doorway, mid-50s, clean suit, perfect posture, the kind of presence that didn't need to announce itself. Claire's breath caught. She knew him instantly. Daniel Hartwell, the new CEO, the man who had replaced her. He stepped inside, his gaze scanning the room, not rushed, not uncertain, calculated. He stopped when his eyes landed on her. There was the flicker of something there. Surprise, then control. "Claire," he said. Her name sounded different in his voice now, not familiar, not equal, just a fact. Claire didn't move, didn't speak. Marcus glanced between them, sensing the tension, but not stepping in. Daniel took a few steps forward, careful not to disrupt the room too much. "I was looking for you," he said. Claire's expression didn't change. "You found me," she replied. Daniel nodded slightly. "I wasn't sure where you'd go," he said. "But this," he gestured lightly around the shop, "wasn't what I expected." Claire let out a small breath. It wasn't what I expected either. The room felt tighter now, smaller, the quiet warmth replaced by something sharper, more defined. Daniel's eyes moved briefly to Marcus, then to Lila, then back to Claire. "You should come back," he said. Claire blinked. "What? Not to your position," he clarified. "That's already been decided." Of course it had. "But there are other roles," he continued. "Advisory, transition support. Something appropriate." Appropriate. The word landed like a weight. Claire stared at him. "You're offering me a step down," she said. "I'm offering you a way back in," he replied calmly. Silence stretched between them. Marcus stayed still, didn't interrupt, because this wasn't his moment, this was hers. Claire felt the old instincts rise, the pull, the familiarity of that world, structure, power, recognition. It would be easy, step back in, reclaim something, regain control. She could almost see it, the path, the version of herself that would say yes without hesitation. But then, she looked around, at the chipped mugs in her hand, at the people sitting quietly, eating, resting, at Lila watching her with wide, curious eyes, and Marcus, standing steady behind the counter, not pushing, not pulling, just there, and she realized something. That life, the one she had built, had never given her this feeling, not once. Claire set the mug down slowly, then looked back at Daniel. "No," she said. The word came out clear, certain, final. Daniel blinked. "You don't mean that," he said. "I do," she replied. "This is temporary," he pressed. "You'll come back to your senses." Claire shook her head. For the first time, she said, "I think I finally have them." The room went still. Daniel studied her, trying to understand, trying to calculate, but this wasn't something he could predict. "Think carefully," he said. "Opportunities like this don't come back." Claire held his gaze. "I know," she said, and she did, because she wasn't choosing between two jobs, two positions, two versions of success. She was choosing between two lives, and for the first time, she chose the one that didn't need control. Daniel stood there for another moment, then nodded once, sharp, professional, and turned. He walked out without another word. The bell chimed again as the door closed behind him. The tension lingered for a second, then slowly, it faded, the room returned, the warmth, the quiet, the real. Claire let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of what she had just done. Marcus looked at her, not surprised, just acknowledging. "You sure?" he asked. Claire met his eyes, and this time, there was no hesitation. "Yeah," she said. Lila smiled. "I think you made the right choice," she said. Claire laughed softly. "I hope so." Lila tilted her head. "You'll see," she said. Simple, certain. Looked around the room one more time, at the life she had stepped into, at the people she hadn't noticed before, at the quiet, steady kindness that didn't need recognition. And for the first time, she understood. Rich wasn't what you had, it was what you held on to, and what you chose to give away. She picked up the towel again, reached for the next mug, and kept going. In the end, it wasn't the moment Claire Whitmore lost her company that defined her. It was the moment she chose to stay, standing in that small kitchen beside Marcus Reed, finally seeing what truly mattered. Sometimes dignity doesn't come from what you build or how much you own, but from how you treat people when no one is watching. And the truth is, the smallest acts, like Marcus quietly helping a stranger without asking who she was, can change a life more than any title ever could. Today, take a second to notice someone you would normally walk past. Maybe offer a kind word, or simply show up, because what Marcus did didn't require money, just presence. And sometimes, that's exactly what someone needs. If this story touched you, comment one below, and tell me, have you ever met someone who changed your life in a way you didn't expect? Stay with me, because the next story might feel closer to home than you think.